Welcome to the Park and Rec Commission regular meeting of April 18th, 2024. The time is 6:02 p.m. Becky, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair Cabrales,
Here.
Commissioner Emerson. She is absent. Commissioner Gutierrez,
Here.
Commissioner Pasternak,
Here.
and Commissioner Sandoval is also absent. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Okay, I would like to call agenda item number 1, approval of the regular minutes. Any questions from committee members to the staff?
No, except, was it March 15th?
It should
For
have
some
said
reason I thought that was a Friday, but I'm going off of my head on the calendar.
April, March 14th. That
Oh, it would have been, goodness, yeah, it's in the packet, it's the correct date. In the script, it's incorrect. Here's the agenda.
So I'll double check again just to make sure. 20, yeah, it would have been 21st. That's what I have. Yeah.
It was the 21st, yeah.
And you checked in the packet is correct, the 21st?
Yeah, let me just look in, I have it open here. Let me just look at the packet. March 21st.
Good catch.
Yeah, March 21st.
Questions or comments? Okay, so I would like to request a motion and a second to approve the regular meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Okay,
All
Becky,
right,
please take the roll call vote.
yes. Chair Cabrales,
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
Yes.
and Commissioner Pasternak.
Yes.
All right, motion approved. Thank you.
Okay, are there any members of the public here today? I skip this part of the.
Yeah, I think that there's a general reminder, we're still not accepting public comment online, so just be anyone who is here.
Okay, great. Okay, so as the chair, I'm going to close public comment and that's that. So the next agenda item is the biannual park project maintenance status.
And it's great to see you all. Great to have the sun out for the meeting. I'll just do a quick intro of our colleague Joanna here. I'll let you introduce yourself and get into it, but really happy to have you here. And I think just as a reminder, you know, this is, I think, a really important report for us to report out on the projects that happen around the city. One of the things that we decided to do to supplement this moving forward is send you some more routine information. We call it internally our Friday Memo. And so I know a lot of these projects will hopefully get reported out on an ongoing basis. You know, we'll send that to you as an email, so you get a chance to stay up to date on an ongoing basis. But this hopefully will kind of capture and summarize those projects and biannual report to the commission. But with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. I am Joanna, the Assistant Public Works Director of Sarah Fell, and thank you for having me today to kind of share a report on the projects we've been working on in the parks and also any maintenance work that's been going on.
Just a second, I'm going to share screen here. Okay, Becky, can you see that okay?
Yes, I can. Thanks.
Or should I?
Go for it. Yeah.
Thank you. I think I can multitask here. So first off, I think we're on our Shoreline Park Restoration project. We know it's been kind of ongoing, and there's been a lot of conversations with PG&E lately, just almost like weekly or every other day. Really just to try to get the restroom energized, and I think we're really hopeful that it's going to happen this April. And we're going to be working on maintenance crews, going to be working on removing the temporary restroom and restoring any landscaping that needs to be done out in this area. And then next up, we have our Albert Park. We've tried to go out to bid for like the larger project for a couple of times. Unfortunately, the pricing didn't quite come in as what we expected, so we had to rescope the project. And currently what we're working on is putting up a 16-foot tall fence along the ADA ramp that was installed, I think, might have been a year or two ago, to protect from any foul balls, and we're in the works. We've been doing construction, and we've poured like the foundation here, so we anticipate having that done probably towards the end of April, early May timeframe, pending weather conditions, but it's been looking pretty good, sunshine, so we're optimistic. And then we have our Pickleweed Park Enhancement Project. City staff has been reviewing like the project design and plans that we received back from our consultant earlier this year, and we returned the comments back to them. So now they're really working on finalizing the drawings. I think the main thing right now that might be the longest lead time is getting the permits we need from DCDC. So we're working with our environmental consultant to make sure we get all the documents necessary to submit to them for review, and then incorporate any comments the BCDC might have into our plans. And I think right now we're still on track to starting construction in the fall. So we'll keep the group updated as we get more information. Peacock Gap, we're very excited that we brought on a design consultant, RJA, and we kicked off the project with a site visit. I think Craig and our engineering staff, Megan Kelly, was out in the field with the design team, and then also talking with our surveyor to get some topographic information that will help, with our design process. And then on to our maintenance updates. One part, after some assessment, we realized that we need to remove some of the playground equipment, and then we're going to be looking at some temporary solutions that we can implement out there. For Albert Park, during this past winter, our staff, along with our contractors, we removed the weeds, we leveled the area, added in some additional mix, and replaced the sod out there. So it's looking pretty good. Pickleweed Park, as you know from our last report, our parks team really helps our streets team during the winter season with all the storms and everything. So when we found a break in the weather, they went out to kind of like take care of the weeds and prune the roses running the building. And then last but not least, Sun Valley Park, we finished the park playground project like last summer. And after that, our maintenance crew went back in to maintain the retaining wall along Solano, and then also improved the sidewalk there. And I think that concludes my report. I don't know if Craig has anything to add onto this.
I might add a couple notes.
Yeah.
I think there's, maybe scroll back up to the top. I just want to make sure I capture my notes for you to
Okay.
Add a little context. At the shoreline, I think, that's been an ongoing project. I think the key thing there is that it's been related to some PG&E, some easement kind of issues, is my understanding, where we just had to work some of that out to electrify them. And Joanna's and the whole team at DPW did a really good job of navigating that. It's just taken some time. So we have had some questions about, hey, why isn't the restaurant open yet? Right, we're right probably at that point where we're close.
Yeah.
We're close to getting that real. So, and I know that's also one of the kind of the citywide project goals that we saw in our Park and Rec master plan. It's really, really look at our restrooms, how we make sure that they're adequately for restrooms at our parks. So I'm really glad to see some progress. And then scrolling down I think this one I wanted to maybe add a little bit more information on. I think, like Joanna said, when we first went out to bid on this, we were getting bids that were, I think, almost double what our engineers' estimates were, and we had a sizable budget, we felt, attached to the project. I think the silver lining here is, as we did get the right scope for the project, we found a pathway to do this to solve what we felt were the risk management concerns for the baseball field in a way that is, I think, far more cost effective for the city. Instead of hundreds of thousands of dollars, this project should come in closer to like $60,000, which as a Measure A project, frees up additional funding for us to use for other high priority near-term projects. And this is in construction right now, so if you go out there to the field right now, you'll see they've got the posts installed and they're actively working on it. So another one that I think has been on our list for several years. We're really excited for us to get this one off the list and make sure that we take care of that. We talked about pickleweed a lot. I think that, you know, we in this setting, we've talked about it a lot. I don't think I had anything else specific to add there, just the timeline, maybe just, I'm excited, get excited, right? Like, we're hoping that this will move forward and we'll be in construction this fall, and I think we're really wrapping up the design. I think on a program level, I want to make sure that you're all aware, which I think I've shared multiple times, but we're considering the impact to our field user groups. I've been working with Steve Mason, the supervisor at the Borough Community Center. As of right now, we've essentially blocked field use for the fall season, anticipating that we'll be in construction. I think as we go to bid and get more information from the contractors about how they may face the project, we'll adapt as needed to make sure that we are allowing use of field for as long as we can reasonably until we get into the construction season where we need to block that off as for construction. So, you know, I think that's something to just, we're gonna try and make sure everyone's aware. I think we've already alerted all the user groups that this is coming, but it will be an impact where that amenity will be offline for a period of time, but then it'll be improved and it'll be open there. So. And yeah, Peacock Gap, we're moving forward. You already talked about that one. I don't think I had your comments.
The one thing I just want to add on that is I think we're looking at doing community engagement in June. And so then we'll probably have a design for the Park Rec Commission July.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of what we're aiming for, is initial concept plan.
I mean, it's gonna be a similar timing to kind of Sun Valley.
We're coordinating with the neighborhood association up there. They're trying to plan like a community picnic and ice cream social, and so we're just trying to lock in a date with them right now that works for everybody. Boyd, we're gonna talk a little more about Boyd, I think, when we get to the Measure A report to kind of share a little more about our plans. So I think we can wait on that one. And then this one, I'm actually really excited about this project because we've had several meetings with field user groups. You know, they have shared their interest in seeing some of this kind of maintenance happen. And so we talked with the DPW team, the parks crew was excited about it and had a chance to get out there and do this year. And I think that's a really great improvement for the field. So they cut that lift down, which I think really helps with play. I think it's also really helpful for risk management out there on the field. So really good improvement that we're able to take care of. And I think that's it. I think you covered it. Yeah.
Okay, so, do you have any questions or comments?
I just had a comment on the people leave. If there's any way that Parks and Rec can help those user groups navigate that, whether it be helping to connect them to county fields, school district fields, Sanderfeld soccer, let us know that, yeah, they don't have any pickle fields or school fields, which are the only fields they have. So there's no fields for Sanderfeld soccer this fall, which serves 500 recreational players with Sanderfeld. And right now the county. Anyway, if there's any ways that Sanderfeld Park and Rec can help to facilitate any sort of conversations about how to get or share or connect with fields that might be open to some flexibility.
Maybe can we talk to you offline?
Yeah.
And understand more
Yeah.
about what's
Yeah,
the broader context? of what's
yeah,
happening?
yeah. I mean, broader context of no field, there's more.
I'm
So
happy
just,
to, I think.
But yes, we did get the memo that Pickweed is saying you can have it till August 31st, which is it's 5 days until season.
Yeah.
They will use it. They will enjoy those first 5 days and really get those kids trained.
And I think we're gonna try to leave the field open as long as we reasonably can
Yeah.
before we need to shut
Yeah,
it down.
that's great.
For construction,
I think
so I think,
that's-
you know, I think there's a
great to
chance
hear.
that we're looking maybe more in September.
Mhm.
There's also, when we look at the details of that project, there's, nesting bird surveys and things that could impact where in the project we can work. And maybe we're working more on the other side of the playground first. I really can't say, we're not sure. There's, conversation we'll have to have with the contractor and alignment with the permitting to understand some of those phasing details. So, I think we can definitely look at that, but what the
Yeah.
One on a totally different, note, one thing I realized isn't on this report, probably because it just happened like last week, but we kicked off the Terralinda Park master planning process.
Oh, great.
So we had a on-site meeting with the architects last week and yeah, so that will be kicking off the engagement around that this summer too.
Yeah, I think probably early midsummer, we'll have some events, some communication events, so we'll definitely want to make sure.
I did have a question or comment about the pickleweed enhancement. I learned that the people who are gonna be working on the waterfront there, the Audubon, I can't remember who was working on that, they pushed their timeline out like 2 years or something like that. Is that affecting the work that we're gonna have to do now?
It's definitely a coordination piece,
Yes.
yeah.
I was gonna say the same
There's
thing.
definitely an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely coordination that we need to have with them, especially with the edge conditions. But I think there are other like amenities that won't be impacted at all.
Got it.
Kind of like further to the west side where it's not attached. But there's ongoing conversations with them, and I think what, our interest is to make sure like our field, like especially the new ones that are installed, doesn't get impacted when their project comes through.
Right.
Cool. That's like, and just to share a little bit of context, from my understanding, there's kind of two components to what the Audubon Society is trying to do. It's the Sporting and Marsh project. There's a project page on the website, but there's essentially a levee wall that they're gonna build that would go all around the field. And then there's the marsh habitat restoration component of the project, which would be taking, I think my understanding is this might take 3 to 5 years in total for that component of the project to be completed. The levee wall would be about the first phase, and that would be construction for a shorter period. So,
And that's the part that's most impactful.
Right,
Yes.
right.
yeah.
So can we do it without the levy wall? I thought that would, but to me, that seems sort of like major work.
That's the coordination piece.
Sorry for the dumb question.
No, it's not, it's a very astute question.
No, we work with our designers to kind of design like 2 possible approaches in anticipation of any like delays on the Audubon Society's project. So we have a design where we can actually connect back to the existing conditions, where we can still push our project forward, and then there's a part 2 or phase 2 of that plan on how we can connect to the future levy. And that's what we're gonna be coordinating with the Audubon Society.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Yeah.
And I had one more question about the shoreline bathroom, and this is because I've been out there and it's part of the walking, I feel like it ties into the walking thing, but when you get there, there's really not a lot of people out there, and it seems very isolated, and so I'm wondering what do we have in place to make sure that it doesn't become the domicile? Do we have anything?
I know most of our parks, restrooms, we've had these conversations before where we definitely know that we want them to be open and accessible to the community, but there are times when we don't want them to be, used or misused, kind of attractive nuisance. So I think some of our parks, we've installed automatic time blocking systems so that they would block at certain hours. I think we moved away from that some in recent years.
There's gonna have to be something there. I wouldn't be surprised if we try the locks again.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you are familiar with the history of.
I believe that was part of the whole problem.
Yeah, so it basically was not usable by the public. There was a lot of illegal activity going on there, a lot of problems, and that's why the city closed it initially. But then BCDC basically said, no, you have to have this restroom there. So I think it's gonna be something we'll have to address moving forward. And I think as, Craig alluded to, we have had these time blocks at a lot of our parks, and They break easily, the timing mechanisms don't work that well, so. I think, I'm guessing that one of those will be on there, just given the history of it, but I think it is gonna. Be kind of an ongoing conversation effort.
All right. Okay, so then I think that we can, do we need to do anything on this? Request the motion to request a motion to accept and second on the agenda item.
I'll move to accept the report.
And I'll second.
Okay, and Becky, can you please do the roll call on this?
Yes, there's my camera. All right, Chair Cabrales,
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez, and Commissioner Pasternak.
Yes.
All right, motion approved. Thank you.
Thank you. So then I would like to call the next agenda item, which is the Measure A work plan.
Okay, so. Catherine, I can tag team this one, so feel free to jump in at any point, but I'll. get
Sure you
started,
got it.
so, yeah.
I'm only giving this a, 3 or 4 times.
So, Measure A, we, every year, we come to you to report on our Measure A work plan. I'm gonna give you just kind of an overview, again, a refresher of what Measure A is, how it ties in with our work plan, and then we'll kind of wrap up with talking about the projects that we're proposing for the upcoming fiscal year. So, Measure A is a 9-year 1/4% retail transaction use tax. It's county tax, was reapproved in June 2022 by the voters. And so it generates around $14 million annually for the county. And then the county allocates funding for parks, open space preserves, and farmland. There's a couple different programs that are administered under Measure A. There's the County Parks Open Space Program, sees 65% total funding, Farmland Preservation Program, and then the city of San Rafael receives funding through. Yeah, so it's the city, town, and applicable special district program, which receives about 15% of total funding. And obviously, I'll take that opportunity for the fair grant. Measure A started a new program this year under Measure A called the Fair Grant, and I'm trying to remember what the act stands for. It's Farm Agriculture Resiliency Enhancement, I think. I'm gonna have to go re-educate myself on what FAIR stands for, but they opened up an opportunity for grant funding this year to support agriculture, to support community gardens, to really support resiliency in the community. So we did apply for FAIR grant funding, and were awarded a $35,000 grant to support the Canal Community Garden. We're working right now to really understand what's the scope for the project that we can use to prioritize projects there. We're scheduling a meeting with the Community Garden Committee to help them, give them a chance to chime in. What are the priority projects? And we're looking at utilizing that funding over the next 2 to 3 years. So we have an idea of where we think some of that funding could go to help improve the garden. But we're gonna hopefully get some of that more information squared away in the next. So we're excited about that new funding opportunity, how that's nice. So, and that's in addition to, what we're gonna be talking about today with the rest of the district, just a separate subset. So the CTSD program receives 15% of funding, and then within that program, the county then allocates funding to participating agencies based on the size of their population. And so based on the size of our population here in San Rafael, we receive it's 23.36% of the total allocation each year. It varies year to year. The county estimates how much that allocation will be based on their expectation for the transaction use taxes that they receive. This year, we did just receive today, actually, we got confirmation from the county that their estimate for us is 549,870. So around $550,000. And that's actually the exact same number that they estimated for us last year in FY 23. So that's historically, I think, been a pretty consistent number. When this measure went up for renewal, there was a gap where the county was not collecting that tax. So, I think fiscal year 22-23, we received a slightly lower allocation. But besides that, it's been a fairly consistent level of funding for us. And it's the largest level of funding, the source of funding that we have for most of our parks programs. So we're really thankful to the county and to the voters for renewing this measure. Since 2013, we received just under $5 million. Historically, we've used it for park maintenance, vegetation management, open space protection, park improvements. Recently, there have been some changes in how we fund the vegetation management and protection for open space. Since 2021, I predominantly allocated Measure A funds to support the park planning improvement projects because of that. We just haven't needed Measure A funding for these projects. So some examples of some recent projects, funding the development of the Park and Rec Master Plan, Sun Valley Park Playground pathway improvements, Over Park fence improvements. We are moving forward with replacing the room dividers at the Boreal Community Center and Terralinda Community Center, slated to be completed in December. The Terralinda Park and Community Center plan, which we mentioned a moment ago, and designed for, so we use Measure A in a lot of ways, but it really helps support a lot of the projects.
Can I just say that the room dividers, the reason that's not happening until December is the length of time it takes. So I think we'll be entering into a contract within the next month or two, but that's just how
Just lead time.
lead time it takes to get the materials for it.
Will that still be needed if they're gonna be doing the whole thing?
It will, yeah. I think that on a program level, having those room dividers be functional really serves the immediate need. And our kind of perspective on that is the Terralinda Community Center, that enhancement plan that we're looking at is really forward thinking. I think that's gonna hopefully give us some recommendations for what we might be able to do in the future, but then we're gonna have to determine how we would fund any of those enhancements, what that would look like, and we're not sure yet what that will mean for the community center. There could be recommendations to renovate the existing building. There could also be recommendations to completely start over. And since we don't really know, we want to make sure our program needs are met now. And so I think for the next 3 to 5 years, it's a reasonable consideration for us.
I would also say that anything related to the Terralinda Community Center is gonna be much longer term than
Yes.
potentially park improvements, facility improvements. The price tag there is just so high that we're really gonna have to think about funding strategies and yeah, there's likely would be a tax measure or something like that. We need that level of revenue to do something that would make those walls not, there might be other improvements we can make, but the walls would still be there.
Got
So kind of getting into, okay, we have this funding that we received from the county. We've done these types of projects. We know we have a lot of projects to choose from. How do we make decisions on how we use this Measure A funding? We've been using the Park and Rec plan that we developed last year as a guide for that. We went through a process to identify what are our near-term priorities and how do we prioritize those? And, I think that's tended to be a guide. It's not rigid. There's things that pop up, maybe intervening priorities that we know we're gonna need to attend to, but in general, as a reminder, the plan, it identified 54 near-term priorities. Some of those have a cost to them. Some of those don't have a direct cost, like policies. There's a lot of those aren't gonna come with a price tag attached, but the 14 park improvements themselves do. And so we need to understand how do we use this guide to prioritize the projects moving forward. So we've taken a look at that. Every year we're gonna be looking at that and, using that as our guide. To give, just as a reminder, this is the list, it's kind of hard to see, there's a lot of them up there, but this is the list of those 14 park improvement projects that were identified by the plan. So some of those are deficiency improvements, and you can see that on the right-hand side there, kind of the, I guess, the orange or goldenrod color there is the deficiency improvement. And then the green ones would be the expansion projects. We've talked about some of those. You see some of those in the update that we shared in the last report. Some of those are ongoing, and then some of those would be projects that we're anticipating the ability to respond to in the near term, which would be the next 3 to 5 months. So I think, depending on available funding, depending on other intervening priorities that pop up, our goal is to hopefully address most of these projects in the next 5 months. So keeping that in mind, what we're recommending this year for using Measure A funds is to tackle these 3 projects. We're in design right now for Peacock Gap. We're expecting that design should result in some construction documents that we can go out to bid for in next fiscal year. And so we would hope that we could begin construction for Peacock Gap in FY 24-25. I think based on some of our recent projects, we're estimating that will cost around $725,000 for construction. Playgrounds these days are pricey. I think to do that in a way that we need to, that's I think a realistic expectation for us. But that's kind of yet to be determined. I think it depends on the final design that we land on and fine-tune that number as we go forward.
I think one other thing to add to that does impact the budget pretty substantially is one decision we've made, and we did it with Sun Valley, and we're recommending it again with Peacock, is to make pathway improvements in the park while we're there. I think, well, one, ADA access requires that. And so, but additionally, like at Peacock, I don't know, you all were there last year, there's 2 ways you could get, there's kind of 2 pathways you could get to the playground, and we're hoping to improve that whole pathway along, even though legally for ADA, we would only need to improve one section of it. We recognize that walking and kind of those pathways that were a really key priority for our community. And we feel like if we don't do them now, it's gonna be really hard to justify coming back and spending a bunch of money just on a pathway. So if it's kind of lumped into this larger project, we're really able to kind of address a top priority community need, in multiple top priority community needs. So that is that, and that surfacing, whether it's asphalt or cement or DG, is quite expensive.
So the second project here, I think this is a great example of an intervening priority that has popped up. As Joanna shared in her report, the Boyd Park play area got to a point where it needed to be removed for health and safety reasons. And we've had a lot of conversations, but what approach can we take to make sure that there's something there for the community? We don't want to leave that as just a, kind of an open area with no play equipment. And we're recommending installation of some interim play equipment on a temporary basis. So we've talked initially with a couple consultants to get an idea, like, is this feasible? We think we can do this, and we are going to be taking a look at what kind of equipment could we put in on an interim basis that will provide some options for families. That would be temporary. I think our goal here would be to bridge the gap between now and when we looked at our prioritization of need for Boyd Park in the future. We do know that we'd like to take a more thorough approach in the future where we do install play equipment that would be expected to have a longer lifespan, maybe take a look at the pathway improvements as part of that project. But that would be further down the line. And we feel this is a really good approach now to meet the immediate need without having to reshuffle a lot of our other prioritization of projects based on this year.
Yeah, and one thing we had a lot when we kind of found out that this playground unexpectedly had failed and needed to be removed. We had a lot of conversations about the different approaches we could take. Can you go back to the previous? And, an alternative to this temporary equipment would be, let's just do the full project now. Let's just go in and replace it completely and do those pathway improvements. And what that would do is it would push our other priority projects back. At least one, probably more likely 2 years. And so when we were considering that, we looked at what would those projects be. It would be resurfacing the tennis courts at Freitas and Peacock Gap. It would be pushing back the Gerstle Park playground area update. And we're kind of predicting now that if we go with this intermediary path, it would probably come after that. We'd probably push it around where Oleander. There's also, I'm also predicting that once the Terra Linda enhancement plan is done, replacement of that playground is gonna be on that list, and that's a very popular park. So that'll kind of be pushed in there too. So that's a future project that also would get pushed if we took Boyd now. And so what we really considered was, when you look at Boyd and the usage that we got through the master plan, it's kind of a middle of the road park. It gets you, it's definitely not one of our lowest parks, but our top parks, our most utilized parks are Peacock, Gerstle, Terra Linda, Pickleweed. So what we would be doing is we'd be taking these projects that are gonna serve a much larger number of people and pushing them off to take on the Boyd Park project. And we just felt that when we looked at kind of our prioritization criteria, that wasn't the right approach, and that finding this interim solution, so there is still something for the kids to do, there is still an amenity there, but it's not going to impact the timeline on these other projects that really serve a broader, more of our population. So that was the thing, we kind of looked at what are the different options we could take. And that's how we landed on this one as our staff recommendation.
So the third project is actually a carryover project. This was also on our FY 23-24 Measure A work plan. This is a trails existing condition and feasibility study. It's a project that we did see in our Park and Rec plan that walking, hiking, running was a really high community interest and high priority. And we have talked a lot about our trails, and I think the first step for us is to understand what is our current situation for trails, what's the existing condition, and then develop some understanding of where's the feasible options for us to manage this test. We've talked with our fire department. They're looking at taking a fire and work to do some assessment of the fire roads in this upcoming fiscal year. We think there could be some really good tie-ins to that project to add the scope of work to the consultant that will come in and support that. And so we are carrying this project over. We wanted, we always hope that you can get things done in the fiscal year. We weren't able to get to this one based on the capacity and based on their projects, but we're planning to get this one done in FY 24. So I think what that will result in is hopefully a study where we really do see where our trails are, have a better understanding of how they're being used and how they fit in with the broader picture of the fire roads in our open space. So the total price tag for that would be using approximately $885,000 of Measure A funds. Some of that would be based on this upcoming fiscal year's allocation, as well as some carryover funding that we do have available from the last couple of years. I think, as I mentioned, in the last report, Joanna mentioned we have some cost savings on like over part of the volleyball fencing, and so we've got a little bit of carryover available. So I think with that, turn it over for questions or comments.
You asked the question about Terra.
I was curious, how long do you think the temporary play equipment will last? What's the timeline for that?
So I think by temporary, we're thinking more like it'll be small scale.
Okay.
So it's not gonna require the level of engineering, the footings, so think like spinners, playhouses, so the equipment itself is gonna be. You know, landscape structures, it's gonna be, public, durable, public asset
Right.
quality. It will just be kind of smaller pieces that we can fit in that, you know, lower, less, the fall zone, smaller, things like that.
Instead of the 20-foot climbing tower, right, something kind of smaller.
Yeah, and our thought on that, we actually, there were a couple of side benefits that we were, as we were kind of talking through this process came up. One, we could reutilize those at other parks in the future. And two, you know, I think we have a couple of small parks in our system, Riviera, Oliver Hartzell, that are at really quite old, but serving such a small population and kind of came so low on the list of prioritization just because they're these small parks with these old little playgrounds. And this could be a potential way to address those, you know, if Public Works could go rip them out. And if this is successful, if it kind of meets a need, you know, that could be an alternative option. And particularly I'm thinking for Oliver Hartzell, because the access there, I mean, it's on this hill. It just would be very challenging to make that ADA accessible, so. You know, I don't know.
Almost like a pilot study.
Yeah. Like, is this a successful model that meets a need that could be utilized in other parts?
And then I guess my other question was more of a general question, but in the master plan, they had sort of outlined a way to make decisions, like sort of a scoring system. And is that, I'm just so curious, is that useful? Did it help? Did it give you a tool to use?
That, I mean, that's kind of how we looked at Boyd. And ultimately, you know, the thing that was, the scoring system was very helpful. And a lot of projects scored very closely. So from there, right, it's an art, not a science. So we have to use some judgment. So, yeah, like the Boyd Park project kind of scored all of those ones, the tennis courts, Gerstle, Boyd, Oleander, they're all kind of mixed in there, very similarly scored. But what the master plan also did was it gave us data on park usage. We know exactly kind of rate scoring, how our parks are utilized. And there is a real drop when you start kind of getting to those, to Boyd and you know, Santa Margarita, Bret Hart, versus kind of those bigger parks.
Great. I'm very happy to hear that. I hope that it would be a tool that could be used for future. So that's great.
Yeah, that's it.
Good question from that, with, are you doing community, engagement with the Boyd Park thing at all? No, just.
It's
Yeah.
kind of an interesting park, because it's not as much a neighborhood park
Right.
as most of our other ones. Just the location of it. You know, I think when we do the bigger replacement, we will, but for now, to save costs and. I think that's really, you know, we don't, because this is viewed as temporary, we don't wanna spend a bunch of money on it. We just wanna get something in there that will kind of maintain it as. That will attract the type of use we wanna see there, cause, you know, I think that's another challenge with Boyd. I mean, historically, we've had trouble with, you know, camping is not allowed there. But we have seen illicit activity there in the past, so I think, you know, when you go there now, it's kids, my kids, their daycare takes them there, and so to make sure that we still have something that attracts that kind of use.
Thank you very much. So then I think what we'd like to do is request a motion in a second to accept the agenda.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Becky, can you take the roll call?
Yeah, Chair Cabrales. Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Pasternak.
Yes.
All right, motion approved. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I would like to invite city staff to share their liaison report.
Thanks. I was gonna share with Catherine. I was gonna see if you had anything on your end that you wanted to share.
Why don't you share your stuff?
Okay,
I'll do it to this.
And I do apologize. I didn't do as thorough of a report this week as maybe I normally would, or this month, I should say. I had a busy week. It's my third evening meeting this week. So, and maybe I'll start there. I think I wanted to share on Monday night, we had city council. And just as a note to you, the Public Art Review Board had conditionally approved a mural to be installed on the Borough Community Center. That went to council on Monday. And city council approved that mural. It's a group called Canal Arts, and they have been working on this for about a year and a half. And the mural has a lot of really wonderful kind of symbolism and connection to the community. So several community members spoke out in favor of that. We also had in attendance some representatives from the Federated Indians of Greater Manchuria who attended and spoke in support of the mural. We're hoping that will be installed. We have some repair and maintenance work that we want to complete on the front wall and windows of that building. We're hoping to have that done by July. And then that mural would hopefully be painted and installed sometime this is. So definitely keep you in the loop on that. And hopefully we go on and do a celebration once it's painted and recognize that. Another maybe just tangentially related with art, the Public Art Review Board met last night and approved, conditionally approved some utility box painting throughout the community. That is being sponsored by the San Rafael Leadership Institute, which is part of the Chamber of Commerce. And so the group proposed painting either 5 or 6 utility boxes in Terra Linda, Civic Center, downtown, as well as the Canal neighborhood. We have a variety of different artists and some different themes that tie in with the values of the Chamber and the Leadership Institute and the tie in with the city. So there's some work they're going to do to refine that based on the board members' comments, and then hopefully they'll be taking that to city council for final review and approval sometime in May. So kind of some fun art related projects recently. We have a new employee who joined our department, a new program coordinator named Sky Arvin, who is the program coordinator for Terra Linda Community Center. She started just 3 days ago, so we're really excited to have her on board. She comes to us from the city of Santa Rosa. She has a lot of aquatics experience up there. And Debbie Youngkin, the senior supervisor there, will hopefully be bringing her around, introduce her maybe month of May, so you'll get a chance to meet her in person, but you get a chance to head out to the community center, give her a level. The summer is right around the corner, so we have a lot of programs that we're ramping up for. Summer registration is open. We made a slight change to the way that we're advertising a lot of our summer programs. We're doing that more in spring, summer preview edition of the activity guide. And this year we're going to try something a little new for our summer publication. We're going to do more of a really camps and activity focused summer guide. So it'll look a little bit different, but that should be hitting mailboxes sometime in April. So almost all of our summer programs are open for registration now, though. So if you want that kind of line to take a look, you can. And we've seen really strong enrollment with most of our kids camp programs, which are operated by our child care division, as well as a lot of our other activities classes. But there's still room. So so we talked a lot about the capital projects that are ongoing. Well, personnel. I didn't pull my notes up in front of me. I'll pull them up. With anything else you want to add?
Did you want movies in the park?
Movies in the park are coming up this summer. Let me see if I can pull my notes.
I can give a couple library related updates. All capital stuff going on. We've got the downtown library renovation. So this is kind of like fixing the roof, fixing the HVAC, fixing the plumbing, fixing the electrical. So this is just basic, making sure a 120-year-old building can continue to operate. So we are hopefully on track to start construction in September, and that is gonna require a full building closure. So we're exploring opportunities for opening a temporary location downtown. We have something identified that looks pretty promising, and hopefully by about a month from now, we'll be able to say we have a lease and this is where we're gonna be. So that is exciting because I know, yeah, it would be a bummer not to have any presence downtown. We also, on Monday night, council approved a agreement with, Jason Architecture Firm to do a kind of small scale remodel of our Pickleweed Branch Library. So it's not, I mean, it will impact Laurel in the park and that it will be construction, but it's really just maintaining within the footprint of the current library, and looking at ways to utilize the space better, just improve the design. You know, some of the ideas that we're throwing out there, I don't know if you all have been in the restrooms there, but they're absurdly large. It's like 2, 3 or 4 stall, single gender restrooms for this branch library that's also attached to a community center that has very large restrooms. So we would love to use some of that space for something else, you know, looking at kind of the computer lab, and is there a way to integrate that better? And then also maybe looking at the back patio, can we create like an indoor outdoor better utilization there? So I'm excited about that project. It's kind of gonna be, the space is gonna be the main constraint, and budget, of course, but I think we'll be able to kind of refresh the space and just make it feel a little bit, yeah, a little more vibrant. And I'm trying to think, library is also gearing up for summer reading time, so a lot of activities in the works right now. I think the big one that we're excited about, what we just committed to, is a Pride celebration on June 15th in partnership with the county library. So I'll be on the front lawn. More to come on that as we keep going on with the plan.
Movies in the Park series will start in August this year. So we will share more information over the next couple of months with you about that. But we've got 4 movies lined up this year. The first one will be at Sun Valley Park on Friday, August 23rd. The second will be September 20th at Pickleweed Park. Third will be September 27th at Terra Linda Park. And then the fourth one's gonna be October 11th at Fruit Jones. We typically, kind of maintain Pickleweed Park and Terra Linda Park as staple locations. And then we kind of alternate the other 2 parks each year to try to make sure that we're getting out to different communities so where the park has the capacity to meet the expected demand. So this year is Sun Valley. The one of the things I did want to kind of just bring to your attention is next month we have scheduled for the Park and Rec Commission meeting a potential site visit. What we're thinking right now, I think we're still kind of trying to refine the plan, but we're thinking that this group could meet here at the community center. We have one agenda item that we would potentially like to bring forward. It's a discussion about our winter spring aquatics program. We did a pilot program there. We want to bring a recommendation to you about how we might want to move forward and proceed. Still kind of finalizing our thinking on that. So we're thinking we could start the meeting here, and then for the site visits, we were proposing to visit the Albert Park, the tennis courts, to kind of talk a little bit about some of the changes we've made there with our key entry system. We removed the locks last year on a pilot program basis. So we want to potentially go there, potentially take you up to Boyd Park as well to see the play area, kind of talk about some of our thinking about Boyd Park. And then depending on time and availability, kind of your recommendations, we would be recommending going to maybe Freitas Park as well to see the tennis courts there and continue that discussion. I really appreciated the site visit last year.
Yeah.
But it was a great way to kind of really see the park and really understand the current existing condition. So I just want to remind you that's kind of what we were planning for next month. So we'll share more details on that and refine it as we get to it. So. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, I have some kind of sad news, unfortunately. A former Park and Rec commissioner He was a member, and he was the chair, Ralph Meehan has passed away recently. And I know Mayor Kate, at, a couple weeks ago at the city council meeting, closed the city council meeting in honor of Ralph, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. I'm not sure if any of you met Ralph or worked with him, but in my time, I think I had a couple interactions with him. He helped us out with a land acquisition that came our way, and I know Catherine, you worked with Ralph a little bit.
I believe he presented to the Park and Rec Commission on that. It was the there's that parcel in Dominican. That was adjacent to Harry Barbier that we acquired, so.
A
Yeah,
lifelong,
he was, I mean,
lifelong
he was
resident.
on
Yeah.
the Park and Rec Commission, I think, for like 20 or 30 years. Like I think they finally implemented term limits right before my time, so he was no longer on the.
I have a couple
commission.
notes I actually took because I think it's really impressive, and I just wanted to acknowledge Ralph. He's a lifelong resident of Marin. He lived in San Rafael for 50 years. 38 years dedicated on the commission, which we wrote that not only demonstrated his love for the community, but also highlighted his enduring dedication to promoting outdoor recreation, health and wellness. And through his leadership, Ralph, he really did leave a lasting legacy that I'm sure is going to continue for generations to come. He had a 37-year career with the Regional Legal Counsel for the National Park Service and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And I think this is a really incredible fact that his leadership was instrumental in acquiring over 1 million acres of land for federal parks and refuges. So a part of our community and definitely had a really big impact. So I wanted to just acknowledge.
Anything else? Any briefs or seminars? Things
Oh, yes.
have-
So I attended the Pickleweed Advisory Committee last month. It was their long session for the year. Where everyone, all of the co-sponsorship presentations happened. It was a 3-hour meeting, so it's very informative. Before those presentations, there were 2 presentations, one about sea level rise, which was completely fascinating. And I'm hoping, apparently that information is online. It was the Corey, the sustainability program manager, did that presentation. And apparently it's on the website. There's maps of it, but it's really dramatic to see how much of that part of the canal and from here down is really below sea level. And even before these enhancements we're talking about at Pickleweed, it's dramatic. And then they got a presentation about the canal garbage situation, which I thought was really fascinating. Sounds like there's some big work to install new garbage cans all throughout the canal and around Pickleweed. So the community sounds really excited about that. And they talked a lot about how to keep that part clean. That sounds like it's a big challenge with the beer bottles on the weekends in particular. And then there were a number of school year co-sponsorship presentations that were great. So it's the Marin YMCA, TAM Adult School, Drawbridge, which does weekly expressive art groups, Parent Services group that works with parents on do their work with children. They will work all over Marin, but mostly in the canal and also in West Marin. And Vivillon is doing Zuba down there. So they were one of the programs that was presented. Canal Alliance presented, I guess there's a Canal FC soccer program that's been running down there. That's really fascinating. Also talking about space, the program and the tearing up the field down there is going to affect obviously a lot of people. Boy Scouts presented and Canal Arts presented, and it sounds like, so I reached out to Steve afterward because there was a lot of requests for a lot of co-sponsorships, and my question was, is there a cap on that? And and he said based on the numbers and this all of those will be approved, so it's great to hear.
Anything else?
I just want to say, recently had conversations with people who love the no key program at the tennis courts.
Great.
Just
That
the
is-
feedback that I've
That
heard.
is good feedback, because we often hear from the people that are unhappy with whatever we've done, so it's nice to hear
Yeah.
that as well.
No, I have some happy customers, constituents, and, also happy constituents now that my kids playing at Albert's. Baseball, there's it's really long, so there's lots of bathroom trips and people love the new bathrooms.
Happy to hear it.
And I did have a question. Oh, do we know what the library group, did they get the number of signatures? I think it closed.
They submitted the
They submitted,
signatures on
okay, so
Tuesday.
now they have to like count and verify and
So
everything.
now the city has given them to the county.
Yeah.
And they
Okay.
have a little more capacity, and they'll go and verify every signature and make sure it's actually a registered vote.
My script has been cut off, so I have to swing this. I think I'm going to call the meeting to adjournment at 7:03.
Perfect.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.